Maria, if excellence is not an outcome, but an attitude, why do so many athletes still chase results instead of building what actually creates them?
That's a great question. First, thanks for having me on your podcast. It's
Yeah.
super exciting.
Yeah.
When you asked me that question, what I think of is, for example, back in 1994, the men's FIFA World Cup. Do you remember who won second and third place?
I don't even know who won first place. So let's be real about that
That's
one.
awesome. Well, I know who won first place because I'm originally from Brazil, so that's who I cheer for. But I couldn't tell you from the top of my head who we played, because who cares about second and third place?
Right.
So I think that that's why the whole excellence piece, people are going after the trophies. It's
Hmm.
the first thing you want to do is come home, show the medals, show the trophy, and nobody really remembers who like the second, third, fourth place winners are.
Yeah. And how hard they worked. And really, what it is they don't understand how hard they worked and the mental game that went behind that. All people know is who won, and nobody knows who lost. So, no, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. All right, let's get
And
into it.
even with, like, goals, right? Like, with, like, scoring the goals, like, people will remember the people that scored the goals. You're not, like, you don't talk about the defenders on the team
Right.
who are just equally important in the game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's exactly what this statement explains is that people care about the results, but nobody cares how they got there and what it took to get to that point. So you're totally spot on. All right. Thanks, Maria.
Exactly.
Let's get into it.
One song, yes,
Welcome to Sideline Society. I'm Melanie here with my co host Maria, and this is where we go beyond the scoreboard into the stories and the people that make sports so much more than what you see on the surface. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be on your show
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. I know
or
we did a welcome
podcast.
before, but I'm welcoming you again.
Thank
All
you.
right. First off, the kickoff, our weekly breakdown of the moments that had the sports world talking. And here's what went down. 2026 Boston Marathon results highlight another elite record setting race, with Kenya's John Courier winning the men's race in a course record of 2 hours, 1 minute, and 52 seconds. And Sharon Lokiti repeating as women's champion in 2 hours, 18 minutes, and 51 seconds. Maria, do you know what it takes to qualify for a Boston Marathon? What times? Well,
I
let's say
actually don't.
for someone our age, we're in the 40-ish range. Actually, yeah, in the 40-ish range, we would have to finish at 3 hours and 35 minutes. Do you think you could complete a marathon in that amount of time?
Absolutely not. I can get close. I think I ran a half a marathon back in 2008. Actually, it was because of you that I ran that marathon. It
You're
was my
welcome.
first and last. You're welcome. I remember we were gonna run together for a good cause.
Yep. Oh, the
It was
Nike.
the leukemia and lymphoma, yes, and it was the first year where they did a lotto, remember that?
That's
Instead
right.
of,
You
like,
made it in.
first come, first serve, and I made it in and you didn't, you were the one that wanted to run, but I think I did it in, like, 2 hours 15, and
Okay.
it was my first one, and it was a half,
Yeah.
so I think it's doable if I did the training, but
Right.
I didn't put a lot of training into it, so
Yeah. That's a lot. I couldn't do it. I don't have any desire to do that. I'll just cheer everyone on. But okay. Keldon Johnson has been named the NBA's sixth man of the year after a standout season with the San Antonio Spurs, where his scoring punch and energy off the bench became a key spark for the team. Do you know anything about NBA sixth man of the year?
I actually don't. The only thing I know about NBA right now is the fight that the Timberwolves had last week.
Yeah. Do you know the Kardashians?
I
Not
do, a
personally,
little
but
bit.
have you heard of them?
Just kidding. Yeah, I have heard of
They,
them.
do you know Lamar Odom?
I do not.
Chloe's ex-husband.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yep, he was named as the NBA's sixth man. I couldn't tell you what year, but that hopefully can resonate with some people what that means. The award caps a breakout year in which he consistently changed games in his role and helped elevate the Spurs' bench production. So, an award that some people are okay with, others are like, well, whatever, six man doesn't really mean a lot. But nonetheless, he earned it, got it. Let's go move on to NFL. 2020 NFL draft took, geez, excuse me. 2026 NFL draft took place in Pittsburgh and was headlined by the Las Vegas Raiders. Headline meaning they got the first pick because they had the worst record last season. So then they deserve, not really deserve, but they get the first round pick. And that was Fernando Mendoza. Do you know who
Mhm.
Fernando Mendoza is?
You. Isn't the Raiders one of your favorite teams?
Excusez-moi. It's an
I
complete
just kidding.
insult.
I know.
That's
I was
neither here
kidding. I
nor
know how
there.
much you. Yes, I did hear about Mendoza, which I think is a great ad for the Raiders.
Yeah. Well, and the Raiders just signed a not a, an older quarterback to, I think, be his mentor. So I don't know. Hopefully the Raiders can figure it out this year. They, not that we have room to talk about drafting a quarterback. We had Russell Wilson and we all see how that turned out. No offense, Russell. Let me give you a fun little fact about the NFL. There's something called Mr. Irrelevant. That is the very last player picked that actually gets a mini celebration. Since 1976, that final pick is invited to Irrelevant Week in Newport Beach, California, and this is complete with a parade and gifts. Do you happen to know the last of Mr. Irrelevant? Not 2026. Well,
I love.
been a
Yes, I love the story. It's Brock Purdy, and he happened to go to Iowa State, which my partner went to Iowa State, so we're big Brock Purdy fans. And it was an amazing story, honestly, right? Because he was Mr. Irrelevant. I think he was third runner up to the quarterback, and then the two injuries from the primary guy, and then the second guy got hurt. And then he did great,
Mhm.
right, for the Niners. So I think that was a really amazing story,
Yeah. So now they call him Mr. Irrelevant, which is fun.
which is hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't like the word. Kinda mean.
Yeah. I mean, but at least you get picked, even if it's the very, very, very last.
Yeah, but you're irrelevant, you
Until
know?
you're not.
Until you're not, which is very rare that you're not. Like, it was a story,
Yeah.
a big story,
Yep.
right? It's
Yep.
very rare that both 1st and 2nd get
Mhm.
hurt.
That's yeah, everything happens. All right, last one. The Chennai Super Kings produced a dominant all-around performance against Mumbai Indians in the Indian Premier League, a professional cricket tournament in India. Do you know anything about cricket?
I'm so sorry, no.
I mean, I don't either. And I kind of
Okay.
wanted to bring this up because I think I've heard that cricket is really popular around the world, especially in India. And they're trying to bring it into the United States and make it really popular. And I know here in the Bay Area, it's become really popular and I know nothing about it. So what I'm going to say is me reading, not knowing what I'm saying. So hopefully I can get someone who has played cricket, coaches cricket on my show, and I can find out more about cricket. But
I mean, if the Japan team can bring that
the chair,
wheelchair the chair rolling sport, I think cricket is a fair
yeah.
thing to bring
I
to the
think
US.
I think cricket's a little bit more of an elevated sport. I think it's a little bit more elevated, more known. All right. Needing double-digit runs in the final 6 balls, CSK, Chennai Super Kings, held their nerve and ultimately sealed the win on the final delivery, sparking celebrations in true India Premier League fashion. All right. Before we get to our guest, we've got Flag on the Play, where we call it like we see it. My flag on the play is about Elijah Hollins. He is a player for the Carlton Football Club in Australian Football League. Not rugby, but Australian rules football, which I also know nothing about. So again, something I would love to have someone come on and talk to them about. But this just happened where he had sparked concern during a recent game where he appeared visibly distressed on the field, clearly looked like he was having a mental breakdown. And they kept stopping the game to check on him, doing different kinds of checks. And ultimately, he was still allowed to play. They said at Carlton, the football club, later described the situation as a mental health episode, with Hollins voluntarily undergoing drug testing afterward to help rule out other factors and clarify what occurred. While reporting around the club has emphasized those internal assessments and follow up steps, broader coverage has questioned whether he should have remained in the game at all, raising concerns about player welfare and how effectively leagues respond to mental health issues in real time. Did you hear about that?
I didn't actually.
I just feel like there is a bigger picture here, and I think this rings true with every sport, that there is always a mental health aspect to everything, and when you see someone, even if they are your best player and they are going through something and it's visibly obvious, and you still let them go out there, I think that's a complete injustice. And you see it in all these different sports, and I think Antonio Brown had kind of a mental break and in the NFL. So I think this is just it's really sad that he had to be put out there like that, and hopefully he's getting the help that he needs.
Yeah. Do you think that part of it is the pressure that they have as athletes?
Well, I'm sure there's probably I mean, there's a ton of reasons behind it, but I think if you're not mentally okay, I mean, sometimes I guess you can get through this stuff, but I really feel like you've got to be mentally okay to be able to be physically okay.
Yeah.
But I
I
could be
mean,
wrong.
it's hard because some of it could be, like, hereditary, right? Like, it could like, the mental wellness could, come from family members that, let's say, have suffered from depression or anxiety in the past, but I think that it's an important topic, and we need to find tools for
Yeah.
people that, if you know that, like, your mom or your dad or somebody in your family has suffered from something like that, we need to, like, give them tools to get through these types of things.
Yeah, and make it more of a positive thing, that being
Mhm.
mentally healthy and mentally okay and seeing a therapist and working on your mental health is not a bad thing, that it's something that you should be promoting and wanting for your
Yeah.
team. And so I think there's
I
a
actually think it's getting better. I feel like back in the older age, like our parents, it was looked down on,
Mhm,
it's like you were, like, crazy.
mhm,
But I definitely think it's getting better. I think there's more awareness around it. I think there's more people opening up about it, like, saying, like, "I feel anxious," or "I feel
mhm.
depressed," than there has in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do
No, I
think that,
agree.
but I still think that there are people that still don't like to share.
Right, right. I agree, I agree. All right, let's get into your flag on the play.
Okay, so my flag on the play, this is kind of funny. So, have you heard of the Diana Rossini story?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have.
So, they're calling it the Diana Rossini story, but it's the Mike
Vrabel?
Vrabel,
Mhm.
is that how you pronounce it? The Patriots head coach. So it sounds like Page Six published a photo appearing to show them together, like holding hands. They went to like a casino. They were gambling. They weren't showing too much PDA then. This was like back, I think, in 2024. But it reminds me of the story that you've already brought up with the what's the coach's name, or the
University of Michigan?
no, the University of Michigan guy, and I'm like, "What is going on here?" Why is this happening so much? And these people are married, both people are married.
Mhm,
It's actually really sad, to be quite honest, but, it sounds like he skipped day 3 of the 2026 NFL draft
mhm.
to go see a counselor for it. But then he was also seen shopping in, I think, Salt Lake City, Utah, or somewhere in Utah. And there's speculation is that he's like going out to go get his wife something to be like, "I'm so sorry."
That's what they're thinking, but it could be for his mistress.
True.
I mean
And I guess turns out that she's stepped down and
mhm.
left the reporting thing she was doing due
Yeah,
to it.
yeah. Well, none of this is funny, I shouldn't say the funny. The interesting part is it seemed like the first pictures that came out were of him and her in, I think, Arizona at this retreat or this resort, and people somehow these pictures were they weren't super risque or anything. And then they came out with the
It sounds like
comments
they
and
recognized him and took the pictures, and they kind of just thought that, like, that was his wife, right? Until they realized, no, that is not his wife.
right, right. And then they came out with all of their statements. And then the page 6 one came out, and that actually was in 2020, because here's the weird part about it is that in 2020 she had a they were this picture, page 6 was 2020. She had a son in 2021. Do you know what she named her son?
No, she did not.
Michael.
Michael? No, I didn't read this. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then she made some
It might be
uh,
Michael. We don't know.
I mean, she made a quote too about like a Michael player and a Michael coach, and it was very cryptic and it seems very directed towards him. Yeah. And then now Clay Thompson and
Wow.
Megan the Stallion, there is a lot going on, and it's really quite unfortunate for the people who are affected by this.
Yeah, it bums me out because, if you're unhappy in your marriage, honestly, like, split up before you go on and,
Yeah.
have a side thing, you know?
Yeah, I agree. All right. Flags have been thrown. Now let's get to the good stuff. My guest today is Tracy Joyner, head women's soccer coach at the University of Oregon and one of the few American women in the world to hold a UEFA A license. Tracy has rebuilt programs at every level, played professionally, earned 2 master's degrees, and is somehow doing all of this while raising a 2-year-old. She's proof that you don't have to choose between ambition and the rest of your life. Here's our conversation. What does it take to turn a soccer program into a championship contender? It's not just about goals or stats, it's about attitude. Today, we're going inside the mind of Tracy Joyner, UEFA A license holder and Oregon's women's soccer head coach, to see how she builds culture from the ground up. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. All right, I'm going to start with kind of an icebreaker question and
Sure.
go from there. So in Ted Lasso, have you seen Ted Lasso?
Oh, yeah.
Just make it like most people have, but in Ted Lasso, there's the believe sign that players touch before taking the field. If you had one word hanging in the Oregon locker room that captures what you want your players to carry with them, what would it be?
Compete. I think competition is one of the most valuable traits for women, and not necessarily with each other, but with yourself, and just trying to empower each other to be great. Life is not easy, and a lot of the way that I coach and I lead, I think I try to really identify things that are going to translate on the soccer field to off the field. And I think being able to have a mental toughness about, it's okay to fail. Like, you're not a failure if you fail, but getting back up and competing and trying again is a really important life skill. So I would say, yeah, probably the two signs I would say are compete and trust. But I think being able to compete with yourself and other people in a positive way is a really important learned character trait and learned ability.
I love that. What would you say for you when you were playing soccer? What did soccer give you early in life that nothing else provided?
Probably just a sense of belonging in a lot of ways. I think to my earlier point, competing, not everyone's like you in a lot of ways. And if they're not necessarily a bigger personality, or when you're little, you don't know what ambition is, what kind of feelings you have about things. And I think soccer for me, and just being on a team, and I grew up with playing a lot of sports with boys, is that was where I felt my most comfortable in a lot of ways, because I was, a good athlete, and even just it made me feel really comfortable. It made me feel like I belonged somewhere, and that I could really be myself. It's the one kind of part of your day, and this is still even true, I think, for college level athletes and professional athletes. It's the one part of your day where nothing matters other than what you're doing in that moment. So all the noise and things that happen off the field, it doesn't matter. It's a Eden of sorts, right? It's just solitude and getting to do something that you love. So it brought me a lot of different things, but belonging and just a sense of just happiness. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So after leading Cal with 9 goals as a freshman, how did expectations from others and from yourself shift And how did you respond to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my sophomore year, I only scored one goal, and that was really disappointing for not just me, but I think my coaches and my teammates. It was the one year we didn't make the NCAA tournament at Cal. Like it was just not a great year. And I think that I'd put so much pressure on myself to like replicate that season that it was a disservice to myself. And something I learned from that was like, I always say this to my players is like when you hold on to something so tight, you can break it. And I certainly think that I went into that like next year feeling like I had to not just replicate it, but supersede it and make it even better. And I like debilitated myself because I was overthinking. I wasn't playing as freely. I was really like more aware of the stat than just playing. And, I think that I became like uncoachable in some ways because they were trying to tell me how to like play the game, and trying to give me feedback. Like in my mind, I like was like, I already know how to do it. Like I already did it once. Like I don't need this. And now as a coach, I'm like, gosh, I probably wasn't the easiest person to coach that year. But yeah, I think that just that extra pressure that I put on myself, it taught me a lot about, just yeah, finding the nuances of the game. And I definitely after that season it was a good opportunity because it made me like level up in a lot of ways. Like I think I don't want to say coasted until that point, but not having a successful year made me reevaluate my commitment to my development. Because that freshman year, I played, I just played to play, and I didn't really think about anything, and I hadn't really trained for it, so to speak, at that point. But it made me like reignite the light that made me get to Cal in the first place and have that original season. So my junior year, it was much better.
Awesome. It's kind of, you hate going through it at the time, but it's kind of good to experience that, especially if you never have before.
Yeah, no doubt. It was one of the better things that kind of helped me just like gain confidence, gain mental toughness. It's like you've got to break it down to build it back up. And usually when you build it back up, it's a lot stronger than it was in the first place.
Did you feel you had family, loved ones there to kind of help build you back up? Was it your coaches, or is it just like, I have to get within myself and figure it out?
I think that it was more probably just like based on me and knowing what I wanted to accomplish and what I knew I was capable of, and just being really honest with myself, knowing that I maybe hadn't done the work, because having a successful freshman year, I was like, oh, I'm good at this, like I don't need to do more. And then it's like, yeah, but every year is different. You've got different teammates, different support. So yeah, it was a little bit different, but I don't know, like I if I'm being honest, like I think my mom was just like loves soccer and was always supportive. My dad was disappointed though. I wouldn't say that he was supportive. I think he was mad. Like he was like, you were the thing, and then what are you doing? So, and not like mad, but I think he is the mirror. He was my mirror, and he was like, what are you doing off the field? What are you doing? Are you doing extra? Like you're in a different situation. You got to level up, and what you did up until this point got you there, but now you're at a different level and you've got to level up again. And that's really important feedback where, he didn't let me cut corners. And at the time it felt like, tough to have someone that you like love, that you cares about you, be really honest and disappointed in you in that way. Cause my dad had always like been my biggest fan. And so for him to, be like, you didn't do well, it was like, oh, you never said that to me, so it made me feel like, oh man, I gotta look internally and fix some things. And he wasn't wrong. So.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have both sides.
Yeah.
Sure. Also at Cal, you went from goal scorer and transitioned to defender, a move that many players tend to resist. What would you say, what did that positional change teach you about ego, trust, and team first thinking?
Yeah. So I actually was recruited as a defender. So that was my natural position. And then my freshman year, our like star striker tore her MCL in like the second game of the season. And I had scored like a goal in each game, the first 3 games as an outside back, which was like kind of one of the reasons I was recruited, was like I was a really good attacking outside back. And so after I didn't have a great sophomore year up top, they were like, let's put her back where she belongs. And so it was good though. Like I think, that's like where I was more comfortable for sure. Is like I just have defensive like tendencies and more qualities and characteristics as a player there. I think trusting coaches that they're going to set you up for success, it's all relationship driven. And I had a really great relationship with my coaches. So I trusted that, that was the right spot for me and the right thing that the team needed. Just like me going up top my freshman year wasn't something that I expected, at the time or necessarily wanted. but they knew that was the best thing for the team, and they were right, which was great. So yeah, moving to the back, it didn't feel like a demotion by any means. It felt more comfortable, but I think just the resilience of, knowing that you trained really hard for one position and then to get, change your last 2 years. It's not an easy transition, but it's like if you've got the right mentality, it's not about you. It's about your team and what the team needs. And it certainly worked out for us. We had a great run the last 2 years.
Yeah. Speaking of, you kind of rewrote program history. From the inside, what habits or standards separated that group from others you'd been a part of?
We had a lot of seniors, and I think that that's probably my senior year. I think we had 7 seniors, and a lot of colleges, you end up kind of with 50% of the class left remaining that you started with. That's just really common. And all of us really kind of like stuck it out and enjoyed it. We had a really good junior class underneath us too. So older players, I think just there's more leadership, there's more understanding of like it takes what it takes. And we just had really like ambitious players as well. So it was different in the sense of like, I think we'd played together for so long at that point that we knew what we were capable of. And we'd seen the small gains that we were making every year. And we knew we had an opportunity to have a really special year. And like to this day, my senior year is the farthest Cal's ever made it in the tournament and the best season that they've had in program history. So yeah, I think just the mentality and the leadership was probably the biggest difference is, it takes what it takes. And we all kind of really bought into what the coaches were telling us and really the feeling that we had with each other.
Yeah. It's crazy how one season can drastically change from another. And you're like, what? We're all the same. And it's wild.
Chemistry.
Yeah.
And we were also really close off the field. I think that was a really big, added benefit is when you've got good relationships that are founded in like love and respect off the field, like it certainly makes you play harder for each other on the field. So that was an important relationships that we had that, my college teammates, especially in my class and the class below me, like those are all my bridesmaids. They're all like my best friends still. And, we're 20 years removed. So.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
When you stepped into the professional game, what reality check hit you the hardest?
Same that hit me my sophomore year of college. Everybody is good, / better.
Yeah.
And that was it, was like, okay, up until this point, I had done the things that got me drafted, that got me to this level. And now there is this whole other level of expectation and talent and competitiveness that I was like, and that was, I would say the thing that really separated me the most wasn't necessarily like my soccer ability and like talent. It was like my mentality. It was very, very competitive, really driven. Like fitness was a thing that I, could always like dominate in. And that was like my secret weapon a lot of the time. And so when you get into like a preseason at the pro level and everybody's super fit and everyone's incredibly competitive and, that was jarring for me. It was like, all right, now I got to level up even more. And that's what's so fun about just being an athlete and being driven is like knowing that you think at one level you're maximizing your potential, but there's this whole other level that like is possible. And so as jarring as it is and maybe discouraging at times, it's also incredibly like motivating, inspiring, and knowing that like this is something you've committed your life to, like why not go after it like with everything you have and see how good can you get at something like. And I think that that's something that we don't talk about enough in sports is it's just an opportunity, like who gets to live their life and like really try to be the absolute best at something, like especially in the professional world. It's hard because it's like there's not a lot of opportunity for you to pursue something and because you're in a shortened window, right? Like for sports, like you can't do this forever. So it's like, all right, let's say your career's done when you're 25. Like how good can you do this? Like how good can you get at something? It's a cool thing to talk about for sure.
Yeah. No, you know what? I think you're right. I haven't really have thought it that way, but it's kind of like enjoying the ride, but like how far can you push yourself and not necessarily go over the deep end, but how far can you take it? And I mean, it's also about support and, do you have people there to push you to where you need to go and your mentality as well? 'Cause not everyone can hack it.
No, definitely like having support is one of the most important things is as a coach, like my job is to maximize potential. And that's probably on the flip side of that, like the most disappointing thing about coaching is like players that have unmet potential. And, whether that's they're limited by their mentality or you don't do your job and invest in the way that you need to, like that's something that's really, yeah, disappointing is when you can't get a player to like step outside of themselves and really like challenge them. But you also want to be able to set them up for success and put them in environments that are at the appropriate level of challenge, so they gain confidence from it, that they're not so discouraged that, they quit or they
Right.
move the other direction.
Right. Right. What would you say, what moment from your playing career most directly shaped the coach you are today? Or moments?
Yeah. Gosh, this sounds bad. They're kind of like the negative experiences, to be honest, where like a lot of how I coach are like I'm aware of all the things that like I maybe didn't receive as a player that like in looking back I like needed, or a lot of things I didn't want to do. And I'm not talking about like discipline. Like I think coaching women, we really want to know why we're doing things and like the intent behind it and the reason. And the more that we know, the more we can invest in something. And that's something like I always felt like I a lot of the time like didn't understand why we were doing something, and like I would question it, which made me question the coach or made me question my teammates. But like understanding more of like, hey, this is the vision, this is why we're doing this is how we're going to get there, it really allowed me to like buy in. And I think that that's why I've had success at some of these programs, turning programs around, is I'm going to tell you why we're going to do it, I'm going to give you the blueprint for how we're going to get there, and like follow me, like I'll help us do that. But like when you don't see the twists and turns in the road, or you're not prepared for it because it hasn't been laid out for you, it's a little bit harder to buy in. I think like moment based, like looking back, like some of the decisions that coaches made, not even like directed at me, but like the way that they handled situations, I'm like, that was unfair. That the punishment wasn't on par for the crime or whatever it might be. Like it just the explosive, like emotional outburst. I'm like, man, that doesn't sit right with me either. It was a lesson in like what not to do a lot of the time. And I learned that also, being a really young head coach. I got hired when I was 28 years old, and I'd been an assistant one time for like 6 months, and really like I didn't have a mentor to like learn from and understand this is how you build, this is how you do it. So I was really making it up as I went, and still am, yeah. And, but there's a lot of things I didn't do great, and things that I can look back and be like, man, I didn't handle that the right way. But that comes with like maturity and aging and experience. But yeah, I think you learn more from what not to do than like what to do, because every team's different. Your personnel and your talent pool and the leadership all looks different every year.
What would you say as far as going into these programs? What's one thing you feel at each school that you've been at? Is there one thing that you consistently go and say, this is what I want to implement? Or is it different based on the school and the year?
No, I would say like a lot of it is based on the personnel and the personalities. So that's one of the biggest things that I try to gauge right away, is like, what does the leadership look like? Not even like the talent, but like just the personnel of like, what's the dynamic between the players? What's like the makeup of it? Do they hang out off the field? Are they friends? Like what are like, because women, again, like we're different than men in a lot of ways in terms of like how we build our little circles. And this is a circle of sorts, and understanding the personal dynamics, it makes it easier for me to then understand like what's the standard that I can set that everyone's going to be on board with, knowing that, this player has a certain idea of like what they want out of their experience, or they don't have a friendship or a relationship with this player. Because ultimately the first thing outside of understanding them as people and like the dynamics that I'm walking into is just setting a new standard and being pretty firm on that, of like, hey, this is a standard, this is what I'm asking. You either get there or you don't, and that's just what it is. You're at each program has a different standard. So to your point, like, my standards for Oregon are a lot different than what they looked like at Davis when I first got there, because you're playing in a different conference at a different level. And I'm going to input a standard that I know we have to have in order to have success. And so you either rise to it and you get there, and I'm certainly going to help you and support you and coach you in getting there. But if that level's beyond you or that standard's too high, then like this might not be the best spot for you.
Right. So what does that mean? This might not be the best spot for you. Is it just you might not play as much, you might be benched, maybe check another school, kind of
Both,
just.
all of those things. Yeah. So then you got to look at like, what is that player's priorities? Like if I said, here's a standard, you're not quite here. You got to do some deep reflection. Do you think you will be able to get here? If yes, okay, great. Then let's like work on that. And you might not get playing time until your junior, senior year. Or never. But if playing time is not the priority and you just want to be part of this team and contribute off the field in some ways, then awesome. But if playing time is a priority, then here's the transparency and the realistic, these are your opportunities. So going to another school might be your best option.
Mhm.
Yeah. So all those things.
Yeah. Would you say you're pretty accessible as a coach?
I am very accessible. Oh yeah. That's really important to me. You're working with 18 to 22-year-old women where they're arguably in their most malleable stage of their life. And that's why I coach college. Like I love college soccer for that reason of like working with young women that are trying to figure out what do they want to do next and like what are they into? What are they passionate about? They've left their parents. Like now who am I? And
Mhm.
I like having that like influence in their life to be
Right.
someone they can talk to about things. And so I I'm very transparent, and I think that I don't want to say it's like a superpower, but I think our staff is really transparent also, and we're really honest. But the reason we're able to have that transparent conversation is that our players know that it's rooted in like deep respect and like love and caring for them. So it's harsh. Like we have very honest conversations, but they're not walking away from those conversations like, oh, like Tracy's so mean or like she
Mhm.
doesn't care, like she's telling me this because she knows I need to hear it
Right.
in a good way. It's just to my point, my dad's mirror, I'm their mirror. Then they know that. Like if you want to come in here and you want to have a tough conversation, put your big girl pants on. We're gonna have a real conversation.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think as an adult, you have to be able to function like that off the soccer field as well as you get into
You
real
can't
life.
text me. Yeah. Can't text me. You can't send me a DM, guys. That's not how this works. So let's prep you for the real world. Mhm.
Yeah. You actually have to have a full eye looking conversation with me.
Correct. Yes. Your boss is going to want to talk to you in person for
Yeah.
your performance review. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's great. I think that a lot of people these days with social media and everything don't really have that skill. And I
Right.
think people are finding it harder and harder to be able to communicate and in person and look at each other in the eye. So I think it's important to start as early as you can.
That's right.
Let's talk about the UEFA A license because that is a huge deal, I think, in this world, especially for a woman. It's very rare. I think less than 1% of women have it.
Yeah.
What motivated you to pursue it? And can you kind of explain the license, like, the tier up to
Process. Mhm.
where it goes?
Yeah. So each, I guess, like continent more or less has like a structure in place where typically each, yeah, like country, continent, however you want to look at it, is they've got, usually you start at like the F, right? And then you move up to the E and then the D, C, B, A. So the A is like the highest level. Some countries have like a professional license now. And typically like anyone can get their F license. They start, that's like, a soccer mom or dad that wants to
Mm-hmm.
coach their youth kids team. And that's kind of where you start. And then the higher level just depends on your experience coaching, maybe your playing level. You have to take, there's usually a couple of years in between getting each license. It can be very expensive as well, the higher level that you go. And so kind of the impetus for me going to Europe to do my UEFA licenses was I had applied to US Soccer to do my C license, and I had done my E and my F, but I didn't do the D license. And I applied to get waived into the C license and skip my D because there's a professional playing waiver. If you had played 5 years professionally, or sorry, 3 years professionally, then you could waive into the C license. And so I applied and I'd only played 2 years professionally, but when I'd graduated college, there wasn't a pro league. And so I'd played in like the semi-pro league with all of the former professionals. So like it was like Brandy Chastain and Leslie Osborne and like Cece and all these
Mm-hmm.
like amazing players. And so that was the highest league that was available at the time. And so they denied me because I didn't play the 3 years. I only played two. And I was like, this feels very unfair because where was I? Essentially, they'd written the rule for men. Like it wasn't a malicious like intent for them to like rule out women. They
Right.
just didn't write the rule for women. Like they
Right.
wrote it because there was only a men's pro league that existed. And so I was like, well, now on principle, I refuse to do this D license because I think I should be waived into the C. So I looked abroad and I saw that Wales had a C license and I was in a B license. They did like a combo course and I needed to go to an English speaking country. And so I applied and the license was for professional players. And I was like, well, if my own country didn't like recognize like my playing level, then I don't think Europe would because they're obviously like even better. They did. And so I ended up getting into the UEFA B and C license. And at that point, I was like, oh my gosh, now I have to go, which was terrifying because I applied assuming I wouldn't get in. And then I could have just thrown my hands up and been like, well, I tried. And then I got in and that started a whole new journey. And so I felt like, all right, well, I did it. So hardest part showing up. So let me just go and I'll see if I can do this thing. And it was a journey getting there and it turned out to be probably the best thing I've ever done for myself, like professionally or personally, just being in a really uncomfortable environment, like so far away from anyone that I know, and just a completely different style of coaching and professionalism and just the environment, all of it. And I had such a great experience. I felt like I learned so much that after a year after getting my B license, I reapplied actually to US soccer and they let me skip the D and the C and waived me into the B license because of this foreign license. Anyway, it was a lot. Anyway, I went back to Europe and started doing my UEFA A license. And so that took about a year to complete. It was incredible. Yeah, I think it changed the trajectory for me in a lot of ways of just understanding I can do hard things. And that typically when there's some sort of adversity, like so much like growth and confidence is on the other side of it. And I loved every minute and knowledge. I got so much knowledge and I just was such a better coach when I came back.
That's great. Would you say that it men and women when you're getting your A license? Is it just women? Did you
Yeah. So
feel more pressure to prove yourself or did it actually sharpen your clarity about why you belonged there?
it was terrifying being the only woman. No, I think initially like major imposter syndrome of like why am I here? Like I shouldn't be here. Like how did I get here? And over the course of time, it was interesting because the residential like programs are typically like 10 days or so, like 7 to 10 days. And after the first couple days, like I realized that I was actually one of the most experienced coaches in the course. And so when we're designing training sessions, like a lot of the coaches were like asking me like, well, what would you do for your session? And I was like, you want my opinion? I was like, oh my gosh, well, this is what I do in my sessions, blah, blah, blah. And so I started to get some confidence out of that and be like, okay, like, and it was different than I mean this like respectfully, but like not really sort of, like going through like the US licenses, like a lot of the license process is like a means to an end where you have to get the license to coach at a certain level. Whereas like Europe, it's like you're there for the education. In US, you're there for the license. I don't know if that like makes sense, but it felt like way more collaborative and like less ego. It's like the coaches that go to do the licensing in Europe, like they go because they want the education,
Right.
they want the knowledge, they want the experience, as opposed to like a lot of the coaches that pursue licenses here do it because they kind of have to.
Yeah.
It's a requirement. So it just feel like the energy feels a little bit different. But like it was really intimidating, which I don't know, like I had that documentary coach that followed me doing my UEFA license. And that's one of the like the central themes of it is really watching me like be in a room with 25 men and
Wow.
trying to navigate that. And most of them, 90% of them were incredibly supportive and awesome. And, but there's a handful that
Yeah. Always.
weren't.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But that's not uncommon to any industry. So it is what it is. And it was a good experience for me because jumping into the college world of coaching, same,
Yeah. 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 So you have been you've been Santa Rosa Junior College, San Francisco State, and UC Davis, all really turning these programs around, which is great. And kind of leading into when Oregon called, what do you think was one question that you asked yourself before saying yes?
Can I win here?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Can I win here? Because the program historically has not. And I think my overwhelming like gut feeling after like interviewing here and seeing the facilities and talking to the people that work here and recognizing how many other sports have had success. That was really what I probably used as like the ultimate determining factor, was like, if all the other women's teams are having success, because like there's different funding and different, you know,
Mhm.
access to facilities and things like that, so like comparable to like the men's sports, but like when you look at the other women's sports, they're all very successful. So that made me think like, okay, like they all didn't start at the top either. A lot of those head coaches that have been here took over programs that were underperforming. Yeah, so it made me feel like, okay, like, can I win here? And what are the hurdles or obstacles, you know, that I might have that would keep me from doing that? But I think in my previous experience, I've been able to do a lot with very little. And we might not have everything that other programs have at Oregon, but I certainly think it's enough. And the experience that I've had of, like I said, doing a lot with not a ton of support, I think could translate to my experience here.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Coaching at this level while raising a young child, what would you say you have learned about boundaries and priorities?
Gosh, you need a lot of help. You know, I poor Wesley, man, she is in it. And but like, what a life she gets to live. So she gets to grow up with the Oregon women's soccer team and be out on the field, and just like, how awesome to be around all these high performing women and competitors and just ambitious people. And then we go and see my husband at University of Michigan, and she's in the Chrysler Center with the men's basketball team. I'm like, do you even know what you get to do? Like, this is
I
so
want to do
cool.
that.
Yes, I know. It's like I pinch myself. I'm like, oh, I work here and he works. It's so awesome. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there's like boundaries. It's just a lot of like balance of
Mhm.
trying to figure out. I'm Moms do it all. I think for me, my biggest perspective is honestly, I don't think I gave moms enough credit until I was one. I was like, yeah, like whatever, that looks like easy. You just do it. It's so hard. And mainly just for me, like I've got two full-time jobs, and like my day starts, you know, when I pick her up from preschool after I've been at work all day. I got to bring the exact same energy and attitude and like fun and all the things, because we have our 4 or 5 hours in the evening that we get to spend together. And I want to make sure that she doesn't get my leftovers. She
Right.
gets like just the good part, and finding the things that work for you. So I also like love working out and exercising. I try to take care of myself. So like finding time to do that. And after a year here, I'm not like a big resolution person, but something that I really wanted to focus on this year moving forward was like just finding more time for myself, and knowing that I'm a better mom, a better coach, I'm a better friend when I've got time by myself to focus on the things that I need to do to feel good, you know.
Mhm.
And I don't want to feel like I'm surviving anymore. I want to feel, because I've never felt like that. I live every day like 24 hours is enough. Like we can fit in more. And you know, after this year, I'm like, I don't want to feel like that. I want to,
Yeah.
well, actually I do. I want to get back to that point where I feel like sky's the limit, instead of just being like, okay, let's get
Yeah.
through the day, wake up and do it again. And so that's been an important thing for me to focus on, is like, it's okay. And it's okay. Like, I don't have to have
Mhm.
guilt one way or the other. I can't have all the things. It's just
Mhm.
really hard, and you got to have support. And luckily, like I've got great friends that help me, you know, with Wesley while her dad's gone. And without that, I don't even know how we would do this. But
Yeah. Yeah.
luckily I haven't had to figure that part out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's important as she gets older to see mom and dad doing things for themselves, because sometimes if you're just, there's nothing wrong about being completely solely dedicated to your children, which doing something for yourself doesn't mean that you're not. It's just giving them an example of being able to say, hey, today's not about you. It's about me.
Right.
And them, I mean, at
Yeah,
that age, they don't get that.
sure. They don't get that.
Does not compute. But eventually, as they get older, it's important for
Yeah.
them to be able to see, like, no, not today.
And she gets it. Like, I think, you know, Lola, she's 2.5 now. She's gotten really good at, it's hard to say like a 2.5-year-old has like resilience, but she does. Like, she knows that there's going to be a different person watching her, like a
Mhm.
couple days a week, you know, like, oh, it's you this week, or oh, you're here for these few hours. And you know, oh, we're going here and we're traveling. I mean, she's taken, before her second birthday, I think she flew like on like 20 flights or something, like an A+ traveler. Like, she
Yeah.
gets in her little chair now and she's dialed, she's got her sticker book. Like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. But, you know, I think for me, like, it's just been, yes, of course, like you change your life for your kids in a lot of ways. That's like just natural. It has to go that way. But I've also just continued living mine, and like be like, hey girl, you get to come on this journey with
Mhm.
me. And she's like, all right. let's do
Yeah,
it. It wasn't
good.
always like that. It's a
Yeah.
learning curve for her too, but she's like, this is pretty fun. I get to go on planes and
Yeah.
travel and, and she's comfortable with so many different people. She's not scared of anybody.
Yeah.
It's just like a different, like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
That's awesome. All right. I'm going to kind of switch things up and talk about recruiting.
Sure.
I know for me personally, and a lot of people that I know, I'm kind of knee deep in that. I've got a 17-year-old junior and I've got a 13-year-old heading to be a freshman. And I know nothing about having a child who would like to be recruited and then coming from someone who does recruiting.
Mhm.
It's kind of an intense world, I must say. And I feel like if you don't know, you don't know as a parent and what you're missing out on and what you should be doing. Are should I be paying someone all this money to do these things? And I just feel there's so much we don't know, or there's too much. I would say what should players and families understand about the recruiting process that they often don't?
That it's definitely not like a one size fits all, and that everybody's journey is going to look really different. I think what's really hard for families and parents to understand is like there's like when you compare your daughter's experience or your son's, whoever's experience with someone else's, that's where things start to get really difficult because you're like, well, I'm doing the right things and I've made the videos and I've sent the emails and I'm going to the right tournaments. And maybe your child's actually better than the player that's already committed. Like you don't understand, you don't know why college coaches pick certain players. Like, and that is real. And that is something that every family needs to understand. Like, there are so many different reasons why players get recruited, and it could be very non-related to their talent ability. It could be financially, it could be just only based on position, it could be relationship with the club coach, with the high school coach, with the family. There's so many things, and like when you start to question like, well, so and so is getting these offers and my daughter, like you don't like run your own race. My biggest piece of advice is like run your own race and don't worry about what other people are doing. Like you need to do what makes sense for you. I would say another kind of like, I don't want to say like delusion, but something that you don't know is it's not necessarily like the club that you play for or like the level that you play at is going to be the ultimate determining factor of how you get recruited. It might affect the level to which you get recruited for sure. And I can talk more about that, but I'm going to be really blunt and transparent. Like if you are good enough to play at the level that you think you're good enough to play at, someone will find you. And there's not a lot of mistakes that are made by college coaches in terms of like, there's not a lot of people that fall through the cracks. Like 100% there are, but like most of the time, if you're not getting the looks by the coaches and the programs that you want to get looks at by, like it might not be the level. It's not because you didn't do the videos or because, the emails or your club isn't as connected. It's probably because the level of talent isn't quite where it would need to be for that level. So I always recommend to families is like, look at the roster, go online, look at the roster. Where are the current players at that program from? What level do they play at? And then it because, everyone's like, I want to go to Stanford. And I'm like, cool. Well, are you on the national team? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, then you are not going to play for Stanford because every single one of their players, minus one or two that are probably there because they're walk-ons, their families are paying their entire full tuition. They're on no aid. And they also have 4.5 and they got in on their own. They might they might not be great soccer players, but they're there for a totally different reason. And like, if you're not looking at the roster, then like you're not doing the research that you need to, and you're disillusioned and you're going to be wasting time trying to go to a place where there might have been opportunities somewhere else that are more at the level that you need to be at that you missed because you were pursuing something that was never an option to begin with.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you feel about ID camps?
I think they're great. I think you've got to be really diligent about doing some research on which ones you're going to. I've always recruited from my ID camps the way that I use them. And I know a lot of coaches, so I don't want to speak just for Oregon, but it's a really good way to get identified younger, like freshmen, sophomores, like you can get like on the radar. Because then the next phase would be like, okay, you looked really good at camp. Let's go watch you play with your club team in a different environment. where you're more comfortable and you're obviously like competing for something. You're not just like at a camp. Or on the flip side is like, we saw you at a tournament and we really liked you and we want to bring you to work with you more closely to an ID camp. So there's kind of two ways that we use them. But yeah, there's certainly, you know, like I said, do some research, because there are some programs that just host camps to host camps and they've got 400 kids there and they're not really actually being identified.
Right.
Just, yeah, be mindful. I do think that the camps that are maybe local, where like College Soccer Academy, for example, is something really prevalent in the Bay Area, where you've got 10 different coaches that come to look at those camps. Like that's a great camp because you're getting, you know, 4 hours and you're getting exposed to 10 coaches at one time. And it's a good way to like prepare you and give you some experience, so you're not as nervous going to like an ID camp at an actual university.
Right. Beyond a highlight reel, what information do you need to see in film training environments or live matches to seriously evaluate a player?
I don't know if like you would need to see anything else outside of a highlight film, but certainly like if you like someone's highlight film, you're calling their coach immediately and you're getting feedback. What are their training habits? And, you know, is that something that is this player's performance in training and their personality off the field going to be something that is going to be translatable to the level that you coach at? You know, like if there's someone that only shows up for games and like crushes it, but doesn't train well, or is lazy or mispractices, you're like, okay, well, in college, like you don't get an opportunity to play in games until you show you can be the best on the field during training. So that's a skill that's probably not going to translate well. So yeah, outside of like seeing, like I think highlight films, getting invitations to go watch them play live, like yeah, next phase is doing some like personal research. Fortunately, our profession and our livelihood is determined by 18 to 22-year-olds making good decisions. So we need to, you know, and follow through. And so we need to know that you're going to do the things you say you're going to do and that you're a good person. You're going to add to the culture.
Right.
Those are important things.
So for highlight reels, are those key? Are those very important? If somebody doesn't have access to be able to do it, then how do you feel about highlight reels?
No, like highlight reels are a good like intro. They're not the end all be all. If you don't have one, we still need to see you in person. Unless you're an international player, we would always want to come see you in person. So it's just like hi, this is who I am. Excuse me.
Bless
sorry.
you.
It's yeah, like it's an intro. So you're still going to come watch them in person. It's not something that's essential. We're still going to call your coach. We're still going to watch you play live. It's not, you don't need it. You don't need to hire someone to make you a highlight reel. Like we're all just going to come watch you play in person. So the main thing would be, if you don't have access, or capability, yeah, try to go to an ID camp, or at the very least, like make sure you're sending out your schedule for a tournament that you know they're going to be at or that you're going to be at.
How do you weed through all of the emails? How I feel like my daughter's sending them constantly, and it's, you know, you're trying to figure out ChatGPT, what is a really great subject line, and how do you get through it, and how can you help somebody?
Sure. I mean, we open every email, but like, I'll be honest, sometimes it really like depends if it gets, you know, read or taken really seriously, depending, yeah, like on the club or the event that you're going to. Like we get a lot of emails from like kind of like anybody, right? And you're like, all right, if you not playing for, like we get club recognition where we're like, if you're playing at that club, and well, maybe if there's something in your highlight reel or like that, we know we're going to be that event, we'll be able to come to it. But there's sometimes, yeah, like we look at clubs and we're like, that club isn't producing players at a power four level, but that's really specific to our level. Like there's way more mid majors than there are power fours. And so I don't know, like I wouldn't say like worry too much about like a subject line or like the body of the email. But it's nice to get something like personal, you know, noted in there. But ultimately it comes down to like, are you talented enough to play at this level? Like there's no emails that stand out above and beyond another email. Like we're not going to not take a player because their email isn't as good as someone else's. Right. Like we're going to still go watch you the same way that we would watch a poorly written email. We're just going to go. I think like advice, one of the most impactful things that I will say though with emails is having club coaches or high school coaches, but more so club emails on your behalf. staff.
Okay.
Those are ones that always get read, because just like from a colleague standpoint, professionalism, we get 1,000 emails from, 15-year-olds leading up to a showcase.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 or 4 club coaches are like, hey, so and so emailed you. This is the game time. I really think that you should look at this or look at this player. That is typically the thing that will put you in a different inbox, is when you've got a coach backing up what you're saying. Because there are times where like we'll get emails, I'll be really honest, and it sounds great, and then we'll get an email or a text from that club coach is like, don't bother coming.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's them, like that we know, like,
Yeah.
we've got a good relationship, and they'll be like, she's a great kid. She's not at your level,
got it.
because they're saving their, that
Everybody's
relationship. Yeah. By being like, when they do have a player that can play, they're like, I don't want to waste your time. Like, you don't need to make extra effort to come here. Like, she's
Right.
not going to be what you guys are looking for. And like, we appreciate that a lot. And very rarely, it's usually the wrong side of that, where club coaches ask you to come and you're like, this is not, you're like frustrated. You're like, this player is not even close. Like, why did you think that, and you're
Right.
like, okay, well, now you just burned a bridge with me, because now I'm not going to trust what you say.
Right.
Yeah.
High school and club, is one preferred over the other?
Club is the only thing that matters. Yep. School is not, it's a supplement. Like because a lot of the high school season is when we're on a dead period, so we can't even go watch. And this is in California, because it's a winter sport. We can't even go watch you live. It's just the level is so hit or miss. And it's more like, I like going to high school games just because I think they're fun. I love high school soccer, and it's more just to like show like a recruit some like extra love of like, hey, I'm here, I'm watching you. Like, I'm not going to go. And a lot of times, like when you're in high school, you play out of position. Like I was a defender in club, and then I played center mid in high school. Like I was not a center midfielder at all, but like that's where I played, because that's like where they needed me, and I would never have been recruited from, if they came to watch me play center mid in high school, then it'd be like, this girl is not good at soccer. But in club, they're like, that's where she should be. Yeah.
Right. So, well, I guess you kind of answered this about transparency, about challenges and discomfort. That is how are expectations led when you're kind of talking to a recruit and where you want them to be if they come here?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of feedback, right? And like, because players commit really early now, you've got usually like a year and a half to a year to like build that relationship and give them feedback. So like, once they commit, you're still gonna go like continue to watch them. Like, it's not over once they commit. So now the real work starts, where you're like, I'm going to come watch you. I'm going to give you feedback that's really specific to what you need to do at this program moving forward, so that when you get here, you're impactful. And so like they know out of the gate, like what they should, right? With transparency is like, you would hope that coaches are communicating like what their expectations are fitness wise. Like, they'll get a packet, they'll know what the standard is. And a lot of players just due diligence, like they'll come watch games. Like we always have recruits and players that have committed come watch our games in the fall, and they're like, oh, okay. Like, and they'll want to talk about the game and positionally, like, all right, so I noticed that, you're attacking center mid, you had them like do this part of the pattern and blah, blah, blah. Like, they want to know specifically decisions behind it. Like, there are some really, really invested players that are massive students of the game that are just like soccer junkies. So yeah.
Does that ever change when someone's committed and you go watch some games and you're kind of like, I see her off the field and I don't really like that she's doing this? Or
Oh yeah. There's players that you think that they're trending in the right direction, like potential, and then you watch them a couple months later and you're like, yeah. And like, those are harsh conversations too. And you're like, hey, listen, like you were, or players that didn't come back from injury also quite the same way. And, you were hoping that they were more prepared. But yeah, I think it's hard because like they don't owe you anything and you don't owe them anything until they get here in a lot of ways. And so having those conversations early is really important. But oh yeah, there's lots of times where you see a player and you're like, man, you committed, and then you literally stopped training.
Yeah.
Like, and that was just the start of the job, not the end of it.
Yeah.
So
how do you define the Oregon standard to prospective players?
Gosh, just like attitude and energy is something that I talk about, because those are the two controllable things. Is like, soccer doesn't matter how talented you are, how good of a student, none of those things. Like, but what you can control is your energy and your attitude and your ability to compete. And those are two things, three things that are really trainable. I'm going to help you get there. no one's born competitive, no one's born with a great mentality,
Mhm.
but those are all trainable characteristics that, it's my job to help you maximize. But ultimately, like, you have to have a really good foundation coming in here. And that's specific to me as a coach and the way that I do things. Like, the players that tend to thrive playing in my programs are high competitors that are really ambitious and have like a winning mentality, that want to do all the little things well because they know that that's going to influence the big things.
Two more questions, I promise. Academics.
Okay.
How important are academics to you?
I mean, to me personally, like, I think how you do anything is how you do everything. And so your performance in the classroom is usually indicative of like your performance on the soccer field or in the workplace or in friendships. And so that's something that's valuable. Like, I have 2 master's degrees. I went to Berkeley. Like, I obviously love school. I'm a big nerd in that sense. But I think like from a soccer program and like coaching perspective, the academic piece really is more determined by the institution that you're at. So for example, like UC Davis is obviously one of the best schools in the country. And, so their academic standard was a little bit higher and more demanding than, like, for example, Oregon's a great school too, but we don't have the same, there's more of an emphasis, I wouldn't say more of, but just like a bigger emphasis put on, the athletic side than necessarily the academic side. But there's also way more support here to help student athletes thrive than there was at Davis. When you get into Davis, it's like you actually like really have to like get into Davis in a lot of ways. So there's just different standards, and it depends what you're looking for as a recruit. Yeah.
Got it. All right. Last question, most important in my life. If you could choose one food that you could eat every day without any consequences, what would it be?
Donuts, glazed donuts.
Nice. That's solid.
Just on loop. I'd have several glazed donuts.
No hesitation on that one.
No, oh my gosh. When I was pregnant, I was like, just load them up. I'm going to really lean into this. I did have a donut every day, and it was the best. I didn't feel sorry about it. I was like, I think I'm probably only going to have one. Let me just lean into this. So, yep. Glazed donuts.
All right. I love it. Zero hesitation. Awesome. Well, thank you so very much, Tracy. I appreciate the time, what little time you have. So I really appreciate it. All right, Maria, there's a lot to talk about. So have you seen Ted Lasso? I clearly I'm asking everybody that, like, it's this
It's a good
show that
question.
we sort
Yes,
of.
I have.
Okay.
I have. And it's funny you ask, but I am not one of those people that can like quote movies.
Yeah.
And like, if somebody's like, "Oh, do you remember this scene?" I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." Like, in the heat of the moment, I'm watching it, I'm present, I understand it. And then when people ask me about it, I'm like, "Oh, is it bad that I don't remember?"
No, same
But
here.
yes, I love Ted Lasso. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. Characters are amazing. Yes.
Okay. So if you were in Tracy's shoes, what word would you hang in the locker room to inspire your team?
It's interesting. So I remember, so Tracy, her words was compete and trust, which I think what I loved about compete was the fact that it was like you're not competing against others, but you're competing for yourself. I thought that was really cool. My word, I like the word determination. I think it's like the mental toughness to continue trying, even if a task could be difficult. And it kind of goes back to like our excellent questions. I think it's like if you're a determined person and you work really hard and you learn all the techniques of the sport, you will eventually get the end result of that trophy, right? But I think that those steps are way more important than getting the gold medal.
Right.
Is like having the determination of like really working hard at what you want to accomplish. That's what I would pick, is determination.
Yeah. Okay. So you are a mother of 2 children, 2 daughters that play soccer. Listening to Tracy, how do you feel about the pressures of competitive soccer?
Yeah, I love the topic you guys discussed about recruiting because I don't know much about it at all. We actually recently did go to a showcase in Arizona for my youngest, who I think is still too soon for her. She's only 12, almost 13, is in 7th grade. I'm scared, but I think, asking the right questions, getting involved, it just honestly, right now, with both my kids playing competitive soccer, I just want them to be having fun. So I'm not one of the parents that are like comparing my kids to other kids. I'm not like, I don't get mad at the games. If they lose, I'm totally okay with it. oftentimes, somebody will say like, "Oh, we're playing team blah blah blah. They're ranked number one." And like
Mhm.
I never even know the teams and where they're ranked and their stats.
Yeah.
For me right now is I just want them to have a good time. And part of it could just be that like I don't think my kids are gonna be the next Mia Hamm, or play for like the US national team. And so to me, it's more important for them to learn leadership, get along with their teammates and just have a good time.
Mhm. Yeah.
I will say it's scary out there. I don't like the competitiveness too much, to be quite honest.
Yeah. I'm totally the opposite.
You know all the stats, but you're good at this. You love the sports stuff, right? I mean, you know everything about all the sports, not just soccer. You're talking about the NFL, the NBA,
Yeah,
cricket. Hello.
that's me being competitive. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely, now that my older daughter is in that mix, it's really a scary world, and I don't it's just how do you get these kids to where they wanna be? I mean, she works so hard and would love to play college, and it's just how do you get them there? I mean, they're if you don't know, or even it's a lot to try to get
And
them to
even
that point.
Yeah, and even the what you guys talked about earlier with Tracy about the being committed, it's like even that in itself is so much pressure, right?
Mhm,
You've got this club that you play for and you have your friends saying like, "Oh, I got committed to
mhm.
whatever university," and you're over here like, "Oh, why haven't I gone committed yet?"
Yeah,
Like even
yeah,
that in itself is a huge pressure on the kids.
yeah.
But I also liked what she said about, like, you can't compare yourself
Mhm,
to other teammates. I love what she said about how people and this goes back to the trust word that she used, how you write the emails, even students during these showcases will write the emails. She reads all
mhm,
of them, but oftentimes if there's a coach that actually steps in and it's like, "Oh, no, you should really go watch this player,"
mhm.
and that adds a lot to it, and it leads you to go. And then she mentioned that like there are times where a coach will vouch for that player and then you go out there and you're kind of like, man, I just lost trust in you. That player was not,
Yep.
the division 4 type of player. But
Division
yeah,
4.
there's a lot of pressure or whatever. Like is
That's
there
a
no
different
division 4?
division.
Oh, that's probably the one I would be in. I'm sorry. I meant division 1.
That's perfect.
I
Okay.
had to make you laugh.
No, you always make me laugh. Last thing I wanna kind of just touch on is I think it's such a huge deal of the UEFA A license. That is one of the top of the top, you as she kind of described the different levels, but I really loved that everybody was turning to her. All of the men, not all, but there were men who were turning to her and asking for her opinion, and she was kinda like, "This is insane. Like, I'm less than 1% of women have this license." And it's crazy. Do you know what country has the most men and women with UEFA A licenses?
Brazil.
No. I mean, I guess that would work, but
You asked me a
I know
question.
it's actually
It
Spain.
was, like, wishful. No way.
Yeah, it's
Spain?
Spain. Men and women.
Wow.
Men is significantly higher than a lot of the other ones, but it's Spain. Yeah. So it's kind of a nod to her, and anybody who gets that license it's a big deal and something to be celebrated. So I just think that it's amazing, and I love that people reached out to her. It just shows her character and her level of coaching that the men were looking to her for guidance.
That's amazing. She
Yeah.
truly is a superstar in multiple ways,
Yeah.
managing all of that with her 2.5-year-old, who apparently has traveled 20-ish times before too.
I mean, I probably traveled
What
that
a
much.
lucky kid. Yeah, by groundhound groundhound bus. I'm just kidding.
All right. On that note, let's wrap things up. If motivation had a face, it would probably still make you do burpees. No excuses, no shortcuts, just getting it done. The trainer who's changed my approach to fitness and won't let you quit, Tamira, joins us next week. Don't miss it. Thanks for listening to Sideline Society. And remember, there's always space for more people on the sideline. Bring someone into the game next time. We'll see you next week.
You forgot to ask me about the food. I'll let you go this time.
Pause.
But hold on,
Nope.
hold on. You don't need to know mine, but I do need to tell you that Tracy needs to go to Stan's Donut in Santa Clara for her glazed donut fix.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going
Yeah,
to ask you
I
this
had to
question
throw that
now.
out there.
We're still
No,
going.
mine's boring. I'm a total red meat eater. That's my jam.
That's your
I can
jam?
have that
If you could
every
eat
day.
one
Yes,
thing, it would be red meat.
yes.
All
Give me
right.
that piece of steak.
Medium rare?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you so
And
much for having me. This was great.
yeah. All right. We'll see you next week.
All right, bye.
Bye.